All right, off we are.
Welcome by another episode of the Stupid Podcast.
Stupid podcast. I'm hoping the video is straight. I'm having doubts from here, but I don't know. Yeah, we're in Rio. Shit happens.
All right.
Episode 6.
Yeah. So, we have here again a bunch of questions. So let's get to it.
One at a time.
All right.
It's your job. I'm waiting.
This one comes with a history lesson. Julian stated that bench press does not transfer to press, but pressing transfers to bench press. Why does he think so? Back in 1972, when the press was part of the Olympic weightlifting...
Last Olympics, yeah, where the press was an event.
Anyway, used the bench as an assistant lift for the press. Really, that's how the bench first came into usage.
Right, so let's go over these two parts of the question. So first part, why do I think the bench press doesn't
let's start there. Because he has
translate to the strict press? Because honestly, from me personally and all the people I talk to, it doesn't seem to transfer that much. If you bench press 600, chances are you'll have a good strict press, but it doesn't seem to translate that much. I've seen very good bench presser that can't strict press that much. Mobility becomes an issue. It's not entirely necessarily true either. Like you have someone like the great bench presser, Larry. Oh my God, like I suck with names. You know what I'm talking about. He bench presses 600 and strict presses 400, so he's extremely strong, right? But he's also someone who does a lot of weird incline pressing, which translates. So for example, incline bench press transfers to the strict press way more than flat bench press. Mobility issue, the angle itself, muscle being used, you're way more in the lats on the bench press, you're way more in the teres major. On the strict press, there's things like this. So does getting a higher bench press transfer necessarily to your strict press? Nah, I haven't seen it. Like you gain, let's say, 10 kilos on your bench, you might put 2 kilos on your strict press. It's funny. But if you get better on the strict press, you get stronger triceps, you get stronger shoulder, it will help on your bench press. And I've seen that time and time again. Like it seems that one helps the other and then not the other way around. So that makes the strict press a very good accessory work for the bench, but the bench press a very poor accessory work for the strict press. Like it doesn't help the overhead position. Like you can see that with the Olympic weightlifters, they don't bench. If anything, the pegs involvement, all that stuff kind of hinders their mobility a bit. It would, if you were very good on the bench because of the nature of the movement, first of all, to some people, it creates kind of a lot of pressure on the shoulders. Depends, like body types, right? For me, it's a lot of pressure on the shoulders. It takes some out of. It can even take some out of the strict press. So, if you're more like, let's say, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, do you need to have a big bench press? No, you don't. Very few Olympic weightlifters have bench press. They incline press, but they don't bench press. So, does a bench press is a great exercise that you should do? Yeah, for sure. It just depends a little bit what you're going after. But if you look like Julius Maddox, who just fell like 800 pounds or 360 kilo raw bench press by this, look at the size of his chest, of his back and everything. It's a great exercise. It just does not work as an assistance work for the strict press. It won't generate that much results, weirdly. Well, the other way around is good. So now, to talk about the Olympic press, as a press, it is not. What? What?
Come on.
No, go no. I can always edit that out, and then I won't. What? Why are you making fun of me?
I was like, I was going to read the next question, and I was like, and there comes more.
Well, yeah. Now, second part of the question, when he's talking about 1972, which was the last Olympics, where they had what they called the Olympic press. You have to understand that the Olympic press is not a strict press. Alexander Karelin. Sorry, my bad. That's the greatest wrestler, Russian wrestler. Man, I suck with names today. Anyway, the last champion on the strict press ended up with a 230 kilos. Right, it was not a strict press. They have a way of doing it where they're going to use the momentum and then push themselves away from it, catch it almost with their arms straight, and then get under it. It's actually a two-movement press that uses momentum and the whole body far more than the strict press. Like that's the problem, is we look at the press in the Olympics as a strict press. It isn't. Has nothing to do with it. You cannot bend your knees, even though sometimes that was done. Like they took it out of the Olympics because there was a war between the Russian and then the Americans, and then an American judge would give always a red a no lift on the Russian lifters, and the Russian judge would always give a no lift on the American lifter. Yeah, so it became who was judging and not who was lifting. Yeah. So did you bend your leg? Was it a push press? Because they were very strict rules, but everybody was bending them anyway. There's so much bullshit on that one. And the great Russian lifter, whose name eludes me right now at the moment because I suck with names. It's amazing. Like I know exactly who that is. I can picture him. Anyway, he actually did had a knee bend on the lift, but ended up with 230 kilos. But again, like there's a movement to it where you lean back, so you're going to use your momentum and then push yourself back, almost like and then end up get your arms straight, end up in a position of like an incline bench press, and then just get yourself back up. But understand, it's not that much of a bench press, of an incline bench press either. That's not what that movement is. It's just a catching the weight and then pressing it a little bit on top. But it's pretty much like, it's like a push press, really, type of thing, except you don't use your legs as much as you use your hips. But so it was called a press, but it wasn't. No. It wasn't. So that's why, like, to answer that question, is because the Olympic press has nothing to do with the strict press. The strict press comes from, like, it was a Russian thing, French thing, sorry, way back in the day, because they had the strongmen who could, go under, and then there was the continental press, all that stuff, that the Germans were so good at it. And here comes the French, that were not nearly as big and nearly as strong as the Germans. So what did they do? They created an exercise like this with the elbow forward, which was kind of a tricep extension, because then they could compete with the stronger Germans. So they come up with a strict press, like feet together, like the military press. Because strict press used to be called a military press, and you had to have your feet together, elbows in a position, and just press using shoulder and triceps. The reason for that is because skinnier people can do well. And that's why the French brought it up. Because the Germans, who had the continental press, they put it on their stomach, and they had a wide stance, and then they would lean back and do an inclined bench press, and they would smoke all the French. And so they didn't like it, and so them skinny people decided to create an exercise just so they could win stuff in competition. Sounds French, doesn't it?
I'm not going to comment on
exactly.
that.
But so there's your history lesson. So go back at the question. It depends if you're talking military press or if you're talking Olympic press. Those are completely different. If you want to have a military press, honestly, if you can do a military press with 140 kilos, you're a god, right? Anytime you go over that, you'll see even Larry Wheels. There we go. Finally, the name comes back. Larry Wheels doing his 180 kilo, he's leaning back, and he's one of the strongest pressers you'll ever seen. I mean, so when you look at the Olympics with their 230 kilos, it's not a press. It's something else. Extremely technical, extremely impressive, just not a press. There's a question.
All right.
And then I filled up 9 minutes. Do you want another question?
Yeah, that was actually the first part of his question.
Oh, there you go.
So that's why I was trying
That's
to...
why you were laughing at
That's
me.
why I was, so like...
You're laughing with me or laughing at me? Like
Never.
the truth comes out. Yeah, exactly.
I'm never laughing at
right,
you.
so second part.
Does he mean for the strict press, since the old press was often standing press incline? So
I answered.
That you answered. Then there is a second part, which I appreciate the thought and the length of the message. Why does Julian think that most powerlifting in the USA and Europe, I don't see this much in Russia, are obsessed with the equipment they use? Always lift with IPF barbell and IPF metal plates. Calibrated bumper plates does not even work for most of them. Some even think that the barbell bends more due than to the rubber plates.
Right. The reason for that is the culture of powerlifting in the US. Those are your accountants. Those are your insane people in the US. They all go to powerlifting. So I remember on a podcast I was talking about the different culture of Olympic weightlifting, which is very quiet. Like those are the snobs of the lifting world. You go to a meet and no one is talking. Everybody's like, ooh, ah. And, you know, there's not a noise anywhere, so they're very snob. They're like, you know, your butlers. Yeah. And then you go to powerlifting, and then it's the meatheads, completely nuts, Metallica in the back, raging lunatics. Those are your powerlifters. So the powerlifters, the American powerlifter, is a very interesting mix of accounting and complete lunatic. If you had an accountant having a kid with an insane person, you get an American powerlifter. So it's very interesting. So that thing with the bar and then the plates and everything.
So you say stuff, you're offending so many people.
But it's true. That's why they're laughing, because they know I'm right. It's totally true. And so they're obsessed with the bars and the stuff for two reasons. First, because they're accountants, and so they were, well, is it 20 kilos, 20.5 kilos, because it matters. And it matters for the second reason, is tribalism, where they want to be able to say that your lift doesn't count because you beat them mostly. Right, so there's a huge thing in America with that. With tribalism, they have so many federations in the US for powerlifting, it's ridiculous. That's why it'll never be an Olympic sport, because you can't tell who's who. There's so many federations that people don't even compete in federations anymore. They compete on Instagram, or they do stuff. So no one cares. Like Julian Maddox had his 800 pound. He wasn't under a feds. He just put judges, good judges, accredited judges, but he could have done it in any format he wanted, just created his own event and off we go. So outside of the IPF, the International Powerlifting Federation, there is no really other federation. Like Louis Simmons created his own powerlifting federation so he could make up his own rules. So like none of them squat to parallel. That's gonna piss a lot of people off, so that's my favorite one. Oh, I've never shown you the SPF, the Southern Powerlifting Federation squats. Like they go super wide, their feet touch the monolith. So the monolith is a machine where you don't have to take the weight out. You just stand up and then the hooks go out and you can squat in place. So you never have to walk with the weight. What they do too is their feet are turned out so wide they get to push against the monolith, which helps a lot to anchor. Yeah, that's illegal, but they do it anyway. Just look on the video, oh yeah. And then they're super wide and they come way short of breaking parallel, way short. So they all have massive numbers. They wear like those massive squat suits. You know, it's like 6 pairs of jeans with the wraps and everything, but they never get close to parallel. I mean, I'm not, like everybody talks about this. It's a fucking joke on that one. It's a joke. But that allows them to post numbers that no one else can touch. And so they do that shit all the time. And that's powerlifting today. And it's nowhere like in America. Like so the raw lifting is actually saving powerlifting, because the raw lifters, you can cheat less. It's either you break parallel or you don't, or I mean, you don't have the right to have like a shit ton of stuff on. So it's saving powerlifting, I think. And CrossFit has a lot to do with that. But before that, you had federations because you have equipped versus non-equipped, and so equipped allows you to lift more weight, but then it goes on and on. But that you have equipped with knee wraps, without knee wraps, with that, and then he keeps on going again and again. Single ply versus multiply suits and everything. So it's that weird mix of accounting and raving lunatics that make for the weirdest conversations ever. And so the accounting part of them cannot let go of this bar versus that bar. If you have a Texas bar, a bar that flexes a bit on the deadlift, some people will tell you it doesn't count because a stiff bar, you can't lift as much weight. And so it's just a war going over 10 pounds versus 12 pounds versus kilos versus this. That allows that allows tribalism. My tribe is better than yours. My federation is better than yours. You don't count because you don't do this federation, or you lifted on this bar or whatever. It's just a pissing contest that social media is feeding so that people can say they're stronger. Bunch of accountants. It is the weirdest stuff to go. And raging lunatics, because first of all, wait till you meet a few at the Worlds and you'll recognize the Americans coming. You want to know the funniest joke I heard lately? There's someone who posted a tweet saying, how do you call Karens in Europe? Americans. That was the funniest joke ever. I'm sorry, still love you all, but that was funny as shit. Right, and there's so many of them in powerlifting, it's so fucking funny. So I know for a fact that, for example, I've known pro powerlifters that take more gear than pro bodybuilders. They take more steroids. Yeah, there's a fascination toward that hunting numbers that is completely insane. By the way,
Super
the gear is
based.
not an American thing. Like the Russians are probably ahead of everybody. Like I mean,
They just more.
they just don't say it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. It's like Americans just love to say, "Oh, I take this, I take that." Everybody's like, "I'll do it too. I just don't say anything." I've heard numbers from people coming out from the lifters from Louis Simmons that were just my jaw dropped. Like I've heard numbers. I was like, "There's no fucking way, no way, no way." And yeah, I talked to people. They were like, "Yeah." Like insane, I heard insane stories. But that's the culture of powerlifting. With the equipment, with the bar, the thing, they're just introducing like ways to, always put 5 more pounds. There's an obsession with a number that is being fed. That's the accounting part of their brain.
Is it then a way that to avoid doing the actual?
No, they do the work. Like it will be very hard for you to find people as committed to lifting as those powerlifters. Oh, those are the most.
What is the thing then with the
accounting? Raving lunatic. Together, you get a great powerlifter. You get an awesome powerlifter. They have those, the greatest powerlifter of all time, Ed Cohen, right? Had 12-week cycles, of stuff, right, where he wouldn't miss a lift. He would do his program to the assistance work lift without ever missing one. You know, dedication he takes over 12 weeks to do that. He wouldn't miss a lift. It's insane. It's like the dedication that the powerlifters have to their craft is, Olympic weightlifters, yeah, but you guys have, you don't do the amount of work that the powerlifter is crazy. Like there's a true
I don't know
passion
the
for the craft.
At all, so I'm actually very curious to see
it's crazy.
The
all year long in the once more in the trenches, deep friends. That's there's an obsession in powerlifting.
So the extra 5 pounds is just a thing that just feeds the obsession of
totally, but it's a very obsessive
more.
culture, very obsessive culture with
so right for me.
Exactly, with because there's that objective mentality with a number, and so that's why it matters.
Percentages in training and
right, but that's why the bar and the plate matter so much, because it's so obsessed with the objective, with the number, that it translates to but is it like 805 or 810 because of those plates or because of that bar? But if I use that bar, I can have 20 pounds more. So what does it mean? And then it drives the culture forward like that, which is the most obsessive culture I've ever seen by a mile. I think bodybuilders are less obsessed than powerlifters. I kid you not. If I look at the behavior, again, at the amount of gear that they take, you would find that powerlifters are more obsessive than bodybuilders, which is very hard to do. Right. It's fascinating, but they're so committed, it's crazy. Yeah.
So, okay.
I think that, yeah.
So, one more question?
No, that'll be enough because we're at 18 minutes already. So that'll be enough for this one. And then is that the person had another question?
No, this was...
okay, then that's episode 6.
Question.
Then we do...
Thank you so much for the entire
episode 6, and then we'll do episode 7 next one.
Behind the whole thing. That was cool. Thank you so much.